Hey friends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a super silly card featuring some brand new products from scrapbook.com, and I am so excited to share them with you today. For today's card, we're going to create a silly geese inspired birthday card using the A2 card bases, the nested vintage labels, the silly geese stamp set, and the Happy Stripes pattern paper, but in the A2 size. I'm going to stamp out one of the silly geese. We're going to go with the little goose who is facing off to the right wearing some super cute boots, and we are going to stamp him in my Misty using Crunchy Leaf ink by Lawn Fawn. Now that is a brown ink that is alcohol marker safe, and it's going to make a really soft finish when we start to color it up with our Olo markers. Now I did speed up the coloring of this because I didn't want to have to make you sit through the entire process at regular speed, so you can always slow down the playback that you could get it at a fourth of the speed, because I did speed this up about 4 times as much. Now, me coloring up this image with my Olo markers, I am going in and making our goose a little bit of a warm gray with a little bit of a yellowish cast to it, just to play around with the coloring. Now, I love that this image is stamped out in that Crunchy Leaf ink, because that means I'm going to get some super soft edges. It's not going to be that really harsh black ink that I oh so often play with. So definitely try to play around with different colors of alcohol marker safe ink. Lawn Fawn has the Crunchy Leaf ink, which is brown. I also love using the River Rock, which is their gray ink as well. So that gives a little bit of a different feel. I just felt that for today's goose, using that brown Crunchy Leaf ink would be a great idea. So we're going to go ahead and color up our goose accordingly, and after we get everything colored up with his feathers and his bill and legs, we're going to use some bright pinks to color up the bow. I just thought that this would really coordinate with some of the different patterns that are included in the stripes pattern paper, and so we just always sort of play around with colors that we're inspired by. I am going to show you the pattern of paper that we're going to use later on in this video, and you're going to see everything sort of how it ties right in. Now, when I color with my alcohol markers, I like to do a technique that is called coloring twice. Now, what that means is I start from the darkest color, and then I work my way to the lightest color. And once I do that through once, I repeat the process and I do it again. And I do this to build up saturation with my ink. And when I'm talking about saturation, it's kind of a twofold process. And what I mean by that is that we are messing with both the saturation of the color itself. Saturation is kind of similar to a deepened color. So don't think darker, think deepened. But you're also going to saturate the paper to make it a little bit easier for that marker ink to move around. So when your paper is already a little wet with ink, that just means that your ink is going to move around a little bit nicer and blend those colors together a little bit more. So as you can see, finishing up with those boots, we are going to then move on to the next portion of our card, where we are going to select our Happy Stripes pattern paper. I decided to use the super bold stripes because I love these colors. You can't help but smile with them, and they coordinate so well with this little goose. I'm also going to take a piece of mixed media paper. Now this is in white, and this is when we're going to pull in for a little bit of die cutting as well. So using the nested vintage labels, I'm going to use the third largest die, and actually, you know what, I just want to make sure to get everything all mapped out, and after I select my die, we're going to put it on the mixed media paper and get it all taken care of for some die cutting. I like to tack it down with a little bit of mint tape, process it through my die cutting machine off camera, and now I've got this shape ready to go for a little bit of ink blending. We're going to use some blue raspberry ink. This is from Waffle Flower for the blender brush, and this is the background blender. Now this is a new to me product, and it's supposed to work really nicely to build up some solid colors in the center of your panels, and it really did a fantastic job. Big fan over here. Glad I got a couple of these to add to my stash, and I love that blue raspberry sort of feel in the background. Now, using Aquatini ink, this is still from Catherine Pooler, I'm going to wet it down just a little bit and then pick it up with a clean watercolor brush. I always like to emphasize that it's a clean brush. The reason being is because you don't want to accidentally cross-contaminate with whatever colors might be residually left on that brush. It'd be really unfortunate if you had like some oranges or reds and you mix it together and you're getting like a muddy purple color, unless that's what you're going for. Not in my case though. So I'm getting everything all splattered with the Aquatini ink that's been watered down. And now we can move on to stamping our sentiment. I selected the sentiment that reads, "Have a honkin' good birthday." I think it is so stinking cute to use with these silly geese. So I'm just going to line up where I want my sentiment to go on my panel, pick it up with my Misty Door, and then use Uptown ink from Catherine Pooler to stamp this down. The Uptown ink is part of the party line, and it is like the darkest teal color that you can select. And I thought it would work so nicely with the colors that we have chosen already. Now, going in with the Aquatini ink once again, I've got a little acrylic block with the little detail stamps on it, and we are just going to stamp out some of those detail images that are included as part of the Silly Geese stamp set. Now, when I say detail images, I mean when you get those little itty bitty shapes that are included in a stamp set. They're not really meant to be the focal point of your stamp set or any cards that you may be making, but they're going to do a fantastic job adding little bitty details to your card to really take it to the next level. So I am stamping out just a couple of these different little detail stamps in the Aquatini ink. They coordinate so nicely with our ink splattering that we did earlier, and it sits so nicely on top of that blue raspberry ink color that we used earlier when blending up our background. So I'm just kind of gently going in. I love that Catherine Pooler inks get such good coverage when you're using them for stamping purposes. Sometimes I have trust issues when it comes to stamping with an acrylic block, and usually Catherine Pooler inks don't have any sort of trust issues associated. Using some 3mm foam tape, I am going to put some on the back of our little goose just to help prop him up a little bit as we put them onto the card. I always believe in the use of foam tape, particularly on focal images for your card, because it gives it a really fun bout of dimension, and the recipient also knows what's meant to be looked at first. We kind of spent the most amount of time on this little goose, and he's so cute, of course he's what we should be looking at first. So I'm going to kind of center it onto this panel so you can still read the sentiment clearly, and then we are going to use the nested vintage label dies once again. I'm going to go up in one size using the second largest, and I pulled some scrapbook.com vellums to die cut this shape from. And the reason being is I love using vellum, and it's great for layering your die cuts because it doesn't fully mask the background of your card. And this background I'm talking about is our super fun pattern paper from the Happy Stripes pattern paper pad. So using liquid adhesive, I'm adhering my blended layer to my vellum layer, and then I have pulled a different foam tape. This is a little bit thicker, and I chose thicker than those foam strips because this is going to give me more coverage. I'm not going to have to use as many strips, and I'm going to put, I believe, about 4 strips down on the back of this panel, and we're really sort of beefing up this card so that it's going to pop when someone receives it. This card might not be the best to pop in the mail. If you're going to make a card like this, I would maybe say if it's going to go in the mail, maybe omit this part of the process and just use liquid adhesive to adhere it to the card base. However, if you're going to hand this off to someone or tuck it inside of a gift bag, I definitely think that you can get away with this extra layer of foam tape to really give that fun dimension to your project. Now, a little tip, of course, I like to put some liquid adhesive on the back of my foam tape just because this gives me a little bit of extra wiggle room for putting this onto my panel. I have usually a second or two longer to make sure that my panel gets put correctly into space. I can make any sort of last minute adjustments. And what I do love is because this paper is striped, it kind of works to give me some guidelines as to how I can best center this panel on it so that I don't have to worry about anything looking too lopsided. Now I'm going to prepare a pre-made A2 card base. Scrapbook.com has packs of 20 card bases that you can purchase, and these are really great because they take the guesswork out of making card bases. You just sort of score them and they're ready to go. When I say score them, the lines are already scored, but you just got to take your bone folder and sort of reinforce those edges and you're all set for a card base. And I love having a lot of them on hand, especially for those days where I seem to be just cranking out lots of cards. Now I'm going to get everything lined up with my card panel onto my card base. And the last step we're going to do is I'm using lemon chiffon pops of color. This is part of the Pearl collection of pops of color. And I'm just going to add a couple dots onto our panel. I wanted to play around with the yellow that's included as part of the background that we have selected. And I think that this color does such a perfect job. I end up settling just on like 3 little pops of color because we have all those fun embellishment detail stamps we did in the background. So after I have them added to my card, I tap the back just a little, just to make sure that those dots get flattened a little bit. And our card is fully completed. I think that this is a super sweet Silly Goose card, and I hope that you love it just as much as I do. I know it's sure to brighten up somebody's day and just make them feel like their birthday is extra special. Now, if you haven't already, do not forget to like and subscribe. Follow me on all socials at Just a Note by Justin. And also, I do have all of the products used in today's card linked down below for your shopping convenience in the event that this card inspired you to go on a little bit of a shopping spree. Thank you so very much for stopping by today. I hope you have a super crafty day, and I'll see you real soon. Goodbye.